Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist to the Abyss, and you're watching my review for Parasyte, aka Kiseijuu, episode 24, the final episode. Alright, and in this episode we find out that all of the parasites have essentially disappeared. Um, After seeing what happened in Japan over the last few episodes, the parasites have decided all around the world that it is best to not screw around with humans. So they have decided to blend in with us and find other sources of sustenance. Okay, so humans win, yes. It turns out that Migi actually ends up disappearing for a couple years as well, because the process of him going from Shinichi, being a part of Shinichi, to being a part of Goto, to then going back to being a part of Shinichi, that process actually changed his physiology again. Okay, which makes perfect sense. Alright. And in this process, he ended up gaining a lot of information, but he doesn't really know what to do with any of it. So he wants to go to sleep for an unknown period of time and just process all of it pretty much. He doesn't know how long it's going to take, but he says that the chance exists that he might never be able to speak to Shinichi again. But at the same time, he says that the chance exists that he will be able to speak to Shinichi again, and they won't die alone, I guess. Like they won't die without ever having interacted with each other again. All right. Um, we don't end up seeing that moment where Shinichi and Migi end up interacting again. But we do see this acknowledgement that Migi is still there, like he is still around. He's just like, I guess you could say he was not sleepwalking, but like sleep moving. I guess. Because what ends up happening is that we get this time skip, right? Murano, Akio, Yuko, they're all in college now. Shinichi failed his entrance exams, which sucks, right? And it's kind of surprising, actually. Um, I feel like that just caught me off guard completely when they actually just had it come up on the top of the screen that Shinichi had failed his entrance exams. Like that's just like such a random plot point to add in. Like, I don't know, it just caught me off guard. It's not a big deal. It was just surprising. Alright, but we have this time skip, and Shinichi ends up meeting up with Murano, when he ends up talking about how humans and parasites, they'll never understand each other, and how it's better for humans to love humans rather than to hate them, and he just starts talking about all this stuff. Alright, and that ends up being relevant because we end up concluding this whole, or I guess resolving this whole situation with Origami, because he shows up and he starts talking about some of this stuff. Alright, apparently the police are close to catching him, and he just so happened to run into Murano and Shinichi. So he grabs Murano, brings her up to the roof of this building, kills an innocent couple, and just starts preaching to Shinichi about how it's human nature to kill other humans and all this stuff. Right? And Shinichi doesn't believe him, and that's when he starts talking about how, well, Shinichi, you're not a true human. You're a mixed breed. I know what you are. I'm the real human here, you know. And Shinichi ends up going after Origami, and Origami throws Murano off the roof, and Shinichi takes out Origami, then grabs Murano, but he thinks he missed her, so he thinks she's like falling to her death, which, I mean, if I were him, I probably would have jumped off the roof after her, grabbed her, and then landed on my feet on the ground, seeing as though he's kind of superhuman now. I mean, not really, but pretty much. Like, I'm sure he might, I mean, I don't know how tall the building, actually no, it was probably pretty tall, because I think the elevator had quite a few floors on it, now that I'm thinking about it. So they were definitely higher than they were at the school when Shinichi jumped out the window. So it's possible Shinichi could still get hurt, but I mean, I'm sure he would wouldn't be like that hurt. Like maybe like a sprain, like a sprained ankle. I don't know. I don't know what the limit of his superhumanness is, so I can't really say for sure. But I mean, he'd survive, but he wouldn't be too terribly injured. You know, so if I were him, I probably would have done that, and kind of just relied on my superhumanness. I mean, he clearly still has the ability because he was talking about how Origami was trying to move and get to him, but it was like, but he could see so well that it was like Origami was standing still. You know, so it's clear his body still has those modifications. Right? Just because Migi is asleep now doesn't mean that everything else just disappears and goes away. All right, so. If I were him, that's what I would have done, but he doesn't. He just sits there and cries, but then he looks over the railing or whatever, and over the side of the roof, and realizes that he's actually grabbing onto Murano. So he ends up saying, again, we don't really get a confirmation of this because Migi is still asleep, kind of, not really, but kind of. But he says that Migi was the one who stretched out and grabbed Murano. Okay, so we kind of not really get anything, and I don't even really know what the point of the scene was, to be honest. You know, like why is Origami doing this? Did he just want to hear Shinichi say, "Don't worry, Origami, you're normal. You're a normal human"? Is that it? Like, is that all he wanted to hear? Like, what was the point of him doing all this? You know, what if Shinichi did tell him what he wanted to hear? What after that? Does he still come Murano? Does he just let her go and say thanks? Just what I need to hear. No, I'm fine getting arrested. Like what? What was the point of this? Why was Origami doing this? And what happened as a result of this scene? Nothing was even resolved, really. I mean, sure, you can see that Shinichi and Murano have gotten closer, but like, I mean, that's just one thing, you know. The stuff with Migi isn't fully resolved yet because we never actually saw that moment with him and Shinichi talking again and Migi legitimately waking up. The stuff with Murano wasn't legitimately resolved because she still has no idea what's freaking going on with him. You know, she heard what Origami had to say about a monster burrowing into his chest and all that, but that's clearly not true. Like, it's like, that's wrong. It was his arm. The whole chest injury is completely different. Like, she clearly still isn't aware of what's going on. She just hears like bits and pieces of the truth, and she's probably still confused. And the parts of the story that she does know are just wrong. So I mean, that's still not resolved. Shinichi didn't tell her about crap. Alright, plus there's his father, there's the origin of the parasite. Nothing was really resolved here. So I mean, I'm trying to think, like, I I mean, I don't know. Did this anime cover the entirety of the manga? Did the manga end like this too? Because if so, then I can't really blame Madhouse. But if the manga did end like this and there's actually more to it, then maybe they're trying to plan for season 2 of some sort, which I don't think they should do. Um, I think Parasyte is the type of series where one season is good enough. Like, it's a great show, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, in order to continue Parasyte and have season 2, they would have to just introduce an entire new plot. Because the Parasyte storyline has been resolved. Okay, that's like the only thing that's been resolved in Parasyte storyline. But all like the individual character relationships and everything, that stuff still hasn't been resolved. So there could maybe an OVA or something to finish it off. I don't know. But an entire second season, like, what would you do? You would have to create an entire new plot. So, and I feel like that would just be like, that would just be unnecessary. But like maybe there's an OVA coming. I don't know. But this ending to me seemed kind of pointless because one, it didn't make sense for Origami to be doing this. If he just wanted to get a couple more kills in before getting arrested, then like why follow Shinichi? Like, is it? I mean, at the end of the day, it has to do because he wanted to hear those words from Shinichi. But again, like, why? Like, who cares? Like, why does he care so much about this? They never really went into why he cared so much. Like, he wants to believe that he isn't the weird one, that it's society that's weird, but like, why does he care that much? Like, the other times we've seen him, he just doesn't really give a crap. He just does what he wants, and that's it. Like, so why all of a sudden now does he care about the opinions of the rest of the world? Like, like it's just, I just don't like why. Like this ending is just weird to me. But you know, whatever. Overall, I guess I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. This episode specifically. But if I'm giving a rating to the entire anime, I would have to say maybe like a 9.5, maybe a 9.5. Because if you here's something. I have a Twitter account in case you didn't know. It's Blacklist OTA because Blacklist of the Abyss is just too long, and I just didn't feel like dealing with that. It might have even been outside the character limit. But my Twitter account is Blacklist OTA, so follow me on Twitter. And if you do follow me on Twitter, you'll know that as of late, I've been rewatching / marathoning some of my past favorite series. So I started off just watching Death Note for the first time because I had read the manga a few years ago, but I had never actually seen the anime, so I figured I might as well. And the anime was so good that I figured I was already planning on rewatching a bunch of my favorite anime from the past, but I was planning on doing it a little bit later. But I figured, well, I just watched Death Note. This is amazing. I might as well continue this by watching other things. So then from there, I went on to Steins Gate. Then from there, I went on to Black Lagoon. From there, I went on to Aquarion. I watched Death Note on Netflix, and then from there I went on to Steins Gate. Okay, then from there I went on to Black Lagoon, and then from there I went on to Aquarion, I just finished Aquarion last night. Okay, by last night I mean Wednesday night, not Thursday night. Okay, but if you haven't watched Aquarion, I have to recommend it. It's so good. Like it has an overarching plot, but the plot is like unique in the sense that the plot is the interactions between the characters. So for the most part, Aquarion is episodic until like the last 6 episodes or so. But those episodic episodes develop the characters in a way that develops the story, despite the fact that it's just character. Like it's just interesting. It's just interesting style, but it works. You know, and it's episodic, so you don't need to marathon it like I did. But once you get to like those last episodes, that last episode is just so beautifully done. It's just so good, and the soundtrack, Yoko Kanno, is just like it's just so good. And then you've got characters like Fudo, who has like 2 or 3 wise quotes in like every single episode. It's ridiculous. This dude just says like the greatest things ever. Like it's just great. I mean, you should watch it, okay? But now I'm moving on to Aquarion Evol, which is the sequel to Aquarion, and I'm getting myself ready for Aquarion Logos, which is coming out in October. But the point of all of this is that if you're following me on Twitter, then you know I just finished some of these series, and I'm about to start with Aquarion Evol. And when it comes to Parasyte, it's really freaking good to the point where I would think about giving it a 10. But like I compare it to something like Black Lagoon, and I legitimately think that Parasyte is less good than Black Lagoon, and I gave Black Lagoon a 9. Like a 9.5. So I'd probably give Parasyte about that as well. But yeah, I mean it's close. It's close, but I'd probably end up giving it like a 9.5 out of 10. It's close. All right, but overall that would be my rating for the series overall, 9.5 out of 10. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. It's just like it's just that it slows down at the end, but I mean that's just the style. I mean you can't expect every series to have like an Aquarion like ending where it's just like everything just starts happening. It's just greatness. Right? Some people just have a different style of storytelling, you know. And this is one where things slow down towards the end when things get resolved. Then there's like one less thing to be resolved, one less thing to be resolved, one less thing to be resolved, and it just slows down. All right. course, that involves the story being resolved, not the individual character relationships and things going on in interactions in general. But whatever. I'm done with that topic. All right, that's I'm done with it. All right. Um, but yeah, episode gets a 6.5 out of 10, and the series in general gets a 9.5. And that's that, you guys. Rate, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. As a matter of fact, if you felt, I might tweet at some point about what anime I'm thinking about picking up, because I don't know what I'm going to review next season in terms of like anime. So I'm just going to have to like feel it out. I have a lot of things I want to I want to watch, so I'm not going to review all of them because it's just way too many. I have like 12 things I might watch, but I'm definitely watching Shokugeki no Soma, so there's a good chance I might review that, just because I reviewed the manga and it's Soma and it's great. But there's a good chance I'll review that. But I don't know if I'll pick up anything else. I probably will, but I just don't know what yet. So follow me on Twitter. I'll probably keep you updated on that. All right. But yeah, rate, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Blacklist OTA, and I'll see you guys next time.